Chapter 2233 The World's Number One Dog. Professor Da Vinci killed a large number of lizard men in seconds with ease. These aliens are able to garrison here. They must be very powerful, at least at the level of human captains. However, they could not withstand Professor Da Vinci's mere attack. When their attacks landed on Professor Da Vinci, they were completely blocked by a layer of transparent raincoat-like substance. Although the transparent raincoat was very thin, even the seemingly powerful laser weapons could hardly penetrate it. Bing Lihuan saw with his own eyes that more than a dozen of his men were killed, with anger burning in his eyes. However, she was not an irrational person, so she did not lose her temper, but just said coldly, "Are you the vanguard of the Huaxi nation? You've stormed into the Wulwan Empire's headquarters before the front lines have been breached. Do you know that this behavior is tantamount to seeking death?" Professor Da Vinci looked up at her and said calmly, "That would have been true before your shield was breached. But now, your advantage has been completely lost. The central city is also full of holes. So, the winner is already clear. Would you like to consider surrendering? I'm very interested in studying your body structure. Perhaps you can become my assistant." Hearing such an insult, murderous intent flashed in Bing Lihuan's eyes. She raised her arms as if to rule the whole world, and her hair fluttered in the wind. White light condensed in her cold eyes, and then the ground in the entire area began to shake violently. Boom! Da Vinci and Brian felt a violent shaking, and the ground even turned 50 degrees, but Da Vinci's feet were still firmly on the ground. "It's so shaky here. Luckily, my shoes can defy gravity." Professor Da Vinci looked at the shoes on his feet with great pride. "You can even walk on the ceiling while wearing it. Now is not the time to be happy about this." Brian couldn't help but complain, because next, they saw a large number of high-rise buildings rising from the ground around them. Those buildings that were extremely huge for humans were pulled up like leaks and thrown towards them. Bing Lihuan fought very decisively. Since the enemy had already attacked the central city area, she didn't care which noble or big company these buildings belonged to. Tall buildings came crashing down towards Brian and Professor Da Vinci, blocking out the sky and the sun. Brian didn't hesitate at all. The moment the tall buildings fell towards them, he activated his ability. 2 white dog paws raised as if in prayer. Weightless field. The force of gravity was greatly weakened, and the falling speed of the high-rise building, which originally weighed more than hundreds of millions of tons, suddenly slowed down. Professor Da Vinci rolled up his sleeves and bravely rushed forward, punching and kicking the tall buildings in the air. His fists didn't seem fast enough, nor fierce enough, but they were like a mantis trying to shake a tree, and he kicked those mountain-like buildings away. Even though the gravitational field was weakened tens of thousands of times, Professor Da Vinci was still able to knock these giants away, which shows that he still has some skills. However, his abilities remain a mystery to this day, as no one has ever seen him engage in direct combat. When Bing Lihuan saw this scene, she immediately judged the abilities that the other party possessed. At least it is confirmed that Brian, the white-haired dog, can control gravity. It was a tentative attack, and there was no intention to eliminate the opponent in one blow. However, it would be meaningful to use these buildings to obtain important intelligence. Gravity? What an interesting ability. Bing Lihuan curled the corners of her mouth, her expression cold and filled with murderous intent. She raised her arms and pressed hard in the direction of the man and the dog, mumbling. The wind was howling, and an invisible force arrived in front of Brian and Da Vinci in an instant. Without any hesitation, Da Vinci hid behind Brian after sensing the change in wind pressure. As a transformed dog, Brian possesses an extremely strong physique. This does not mean that his close combat ability is comparable to that of an enhanced mutant. In fact, Brian's close combat ability is very average. However, its ability to withstand blows is several times that of an ordinary white bishop. In the Natural Science Association of Columbia, it has a very loud nickname, Legendary King of Endurance. There's no way around it. When Professor Da Vinci first modified it, he was thinking of it as a tool dog because it has all sorts of convenient attributes. Although Brian was speechless, He still used his body to help Da Vinci take the damage. When it stood up, it was half a head taller than the old man. When the terrifying telekinesis attacks, it is filled with powerful murderous intent. There are usually two ways to use telekinesis. The first is to control objects, and the second is to directly launch long-range attacks with telekinesis. The second type requires a higher level of mastery of telekinesis, but has greater destructive power. Brian pressed his hands down. Super heavy field. It instantly created a large overweight field in front of itself, trying to guide the opponent's force and deviate from the original attack trajectory. But less than half a second after it released its power, a tearing sensation appeared on the front of its body. Sho, 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 sho. Deep blood marks appeared on its face, body, and arms, and blood splattered out. Woof, woof woof woof. Wah, a whir's a whir, a whir a wah. Brian was in so much pain that he sometimes barked like a dog, and sometimes howled like a wolf. His superweight field did not affect the opponent's attack ability, so Bing Lihuan's chatting all hit his body. The ability to tear everything apart made him look extremely miserable, with scars all over the front of his body. But fortunately, although the injury looked scary, it did not actually damage the bones. It was just a superficial injury. Bing Lihuan narrowed her eyes slightly. Defensive power is so amazing. He has the ability to control gravity, but he has no defensive means such as supernatural shields and can only rely on his body to block her telekinetic attacks. However, isn't the strength of this body too terrifying? Even if the opponent was a bishop-level mutant of the strengthening system, it would be impossible for him to block her attack so easily. Bing Lihuan, Ability Index 35,000 points, Bishop level. A holder of the Nern ability. Brian, codenamed Supernova, has an ability index of 33,000 points, is a transformed super dog with the ability of gravity control. Professor Da Vinci, his abilities and strength are unknown. Brian was jumping up and down in pain, while Professor Da Vinci slowly took out an injection gun from his pocket and injected him with it. Chapter 2234 Woof 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 Woof. A magical thing happened. In just a moment, all the wounds on its body disappeared. Oh, thank God. I'm feeling much better now. Brian wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. I'm the one you should be thanking, stupid dog. Professor Da Vinci complained with a look of disgust. Now we should think about how to get rid of this guy. A telekinetic user? It's a very rare ability, but also very challenging. They already have some information about Bing Lihuan, but not all. There is no way. The abilities of the aliens above the bishop level are all core secrets. Even those silver-armored generals were not qualified to fully understand it. But since this pair has come here, they have enough confidence to complete the task assigned to them by Yang Xinxin. Detain the only bishop-level alien in the central city. That's right, Bing Lihuan is now the last bishop-level alien in the Wulwan Empire. Bing Lihuan was in contact with the top brass of the empire at this time. The enemy has invaded the central city, and the military headquarters has been attacked. I am currently fighting them. Please be careful at the Imperial Palace. The faces of the Imperial high-ranking officials who received the news changed immediately. Even the military was invaded. Is the situation so critical that the country is about to be destroyed? How could this happen? It's been less than 2 hours, and our country's solid defenses have been completely destroyed. Where are those soldiers? Give them a death order. Never allow the enemy to attack the Imperial City. Damn it, these useless people. What's the point of raising them? Even if we raise hundreds of thousands of pigs, it will take them several days to catch them all. Ci's face was gloomy and he was very panicked inside. His hands under the table were shaking, revealing his emotions. He stroked the ancient ring, feeling hesitant. Wait for the marshal to come back. Wait for him. He still held on to the last fantasy in his heart that as long as Zheng Lu was not dead, the Wulwan Empire would not be considered a failure. Even if many people died, even all the royal family and high-ranking nobles died, as long as Zheng Lu won, he could still save everything. Then there is still hope for the Wulwan clan. This is also the reason why Zhang Yi has not yet fought a life-and-death battle with Zheng Lu. He is just delaying the battle. He just wanted to leave a glimmer of hope for the top leaders of the Wulwan Empire so that they would not perish together. But now Yang Xinshin and the others are approaching. Looking before him, he saw that these ministers who usually lived a life of luxury and acted high and mighty and were now in a mess, completely devoid of their noble demeanor. C found it extremely jarring. "Shut up. Be quiet." He slammed the table and shouted angrily. In an instant, the entire high-level conference room fell silent, and everyone looked at the emperor with fear and helplessness in their eyes. Can the problem be solved without arguing? The so-called high-level meetings cannot solve the problem of war. Politics is what they are best at. Ce took a few deep breaths and tried to calm himself down as much as possible. Wait for news from Grand Marshal Zhenglu. I believe the military god of the Wulwan Empire will not fail. But if the Wulwan Empire is really defeated this time, then... Ce leaned on the luxurious throne, his gloomy eyes sweeping over everyone present. All of us will go with the Empire. These words sent a chill down everyone's spine. What Ce said was to tell them that no one could leave today. The way of secretly escaping from the Wulwan Empire with family and property was completely cut off. Now they can only live and die with the Empire. Never mind, never mind. The Chancellor sighed and sat down with his cane. Our Chichika family has served the royal family for countless years, and we should accompany your majesty to the end. There was already a strong sense of uneasiness in these words, and they could no longer maintain their confidence. The military headquarters is only about 50 kilometers away from here. For high-level mutants or strong mechanized troops, it can be reached in less than 10 minutes. How can there be any safety here? Ce slowly closed his eyes, ignoring the looks and complaints of the ministers below. All he can do now is wait for the outcome of the battle. In front of the palace, a large number of lizardmen soldiers dressed in the highest grade combat uniforms had already completely blocked off several surrounding streets. There are 3,000 Imperial guards guarding the palace, and each one is the elite among the elite. A considerable number of them are powerful people with special abilities. They held weapons and stood guard near the palace with vigilant expressions, not allowing anyone to approach. They also formed the last line of defense for the royal family. The battlefield of Da Vinci, Brian, and Bing Lihuan. Bing Lihuan quickly confirmed Brian's ability, and she was absolutely confident that she could defeat him. But if you want to kill it, it seems that it will take some effort. No matter how strong your defense is, it can't withstand my continuous attacks, right? Bing Lihuan was suspended high in the sky, his entire body stretched out like a cross, and his stretched body seemed to dominate the world. Mumbling. Telekinesis swept out like a storm, heading straight for Brian and Professor Da Vinci. Telekinesis is a force from a higher dimension and is not affected by gravitational fields. Therefore, Brian's gravitational field could not distort it. Having suffered a great loss, it did not hesitate and chose the opposite approach. Weightlessness. It protected Professor Da Vinci, kicked the ground with its legs, and took off into the air like a rocket. Its speed reached an extremely outrageous level, at least 20 times the speed of Mach. It even gives people a feeling that it will break out of the Earth's crust and rush into space at any time. At this speed, the friction is also amazing. Fortunately, it has thick skin and flesh, and Professor Da Vinci is able to avoid damage thanks to the transparent raincoat-like clothing on his body. After the man and the dog reached a high altitude, Professor Da Vinci stared coldly at Bing Lihuan below and quickly took out his pistol. After aiming at Bing Lihuan, he pulled the trigger. A powerful purple beam of light enveloped down, covering Bing Lihuan like a spotlight. But the moment the purple beam approached her body, an extremely strange situation occurred. The light actually twisted in midair and then reflected back. The purple beam of light shone on Professor Da Vinci and Brian, and their bodies looked purple. Brian was confused, then screamed in fear. Woof woof woof. Oh woof woof woof. Stay with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.